Welcome to the Modern Monk podcast. This is episode 16. Today we're talking about dopamine detoxing, or dopamine rewiring as I like to call it. I'm here with Toby Chilva. How you doing, Tobes?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, this is one close to home for you, so
Yeah.
here we go.
Keen for this one. So let's start off with just giving an overview of what dopamine rewiring is. So how do you see dopamine rewiring?
I see dopamine rewiring as resetting your baseline level of dopamine by removing your lowest ROI activity. And that's it. And I think when you think about what that means, it's really powerful. Like, your baseline level of dopamine has a huge impact on how you experience life, the decisions you make with your time and energy every day, day to day. And yeah, it's raising the floor. It's taking your lowest ROI task and just making it something better. And so that's something that's a continuous process.
Yeah, I mean, there's two huge things here. First of all, I think we should clarify sort of what dopamine is. I guess dopamine would be the neurochemical that is sort of released when we anticipate or do something pleasurable or rewarding, like we're working towards a goal. We're going to release dopamine. Thinking about certain things makes us release dopamine. It's almost like motivation. They did an experiment where they basically severed neurons in the brains of rats. And what they found is that if they put a bit of food, like a bit of cheese, at the other side of the cage to the rat, and they'd severed the neuron so that the rats did not produce any dopamine, what would happen is the rats literally wouldn't move to the other side of the cage to eat food. They would just sit there, and a lot of them would just starve to death. They would still eat the food. If you put food in the mouths of the rats, they would still eat it, but they would not move to the other side of the cage. And that is the difference between having motivation or having dopamine and not having dopamine. I think if we can increase the baseline, as you talk about, you're essentially increasing the amount of motivation, drive, determination you have. So it's a really important thing. And then the other thing you touched on there was time management and removing the lowest ROI activities. I think if a lot of us did a time survey, like they looked at, okay, what am I doing throughout the day? How am I spending my time? And you rated the quality of what you did on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how great was my return on time for this. I think what you would find is that the lowest ROI activities, the things that give you the lowest return on your time, is the time you spend scrolling, it's the time you spend binge watching TV shows, the time you spend gaming. It's all of the really easy things that feel really good. If you looked retrospectively at it, you go, okay, those were the lowest ROI activities. And if we're dopamine rewiring, we're getting rid of those behaviors, then all you're saying is, okay, I'm getting rid of the lowest ROI activities. And if you're doing that, what are you doing? Well, you can only replace it with higher ROI activities. So you get a really, really good return on your time.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting that the lowest ROI activities are those which dopamine comes at the least cost, like essentially free, which I know we've talked about before, has never happened before in human history. Like there was never someone putting cheese in the mouth of the rat before this. Yeah. There was always some level of obstacle that required some, and that made the dopamine release, connected to the level of obstacle that it took to overcome to obtain that. But now we live in a society where dopamine is freely accessible whenever you want.
Yeah, if we looked historically about how did we receive dopamine, how do we receive this feeling of reward and drive, a lot of it came from pursuing and doing activities that were really difficult. Generally, the most purposeful activities produce the most dopamine, right? If you killed a family to feed your tribe, it would produce more dopamine than sitting around the campfire telling stories. But now that we've introduced modern entertainment, essentially what we've done is allowed you to feel as good as you would feel for killing an animal and feeding your tribe, for doing less work than sitting around the campfire and telling jokes. And so then, why do we think that we're like the rats in the cage that won't cross the cage to eat the food? Well, if we can get the food so easily and it feels so amazing, why would we bother walking to the other side of the cage? What's the point of putting in all the effort when all the reward is here and it's free and it's easy?
Yeah, I mean, the imbalance is just so off. Like, if you look at it zoomed out from a faraway perspective, the equation just doesn't make sense anymore. But obviously, we don't update our brain at the same rate in which we update the environment that we're in. And so there's this mismatch between how our brain rewards us and then how we're able to reward ourselves in the current environments that we're in.
So what do you see as the big things that are producing the most dopamine, that are feeling really easy? What are we, when we say we're removing these low ROI activities, this cheap dopamine, what are you referring to particularly?
For me, it was scrolling Instagram, watching YouTube, watching movies. It was just consuming entertainment. The big signal indicator for me that it was a cheap dopamine and my lowest ROI activity is that it feels really, really good in the moment, and then as soon as it's over, it feels really, really bad, which is a sign that like it's giving you lots of dopamine at the time, but then afterwards you know it was cheap, you know it's not really what you wanted. It's just you couldn't take yourself away from it at the time. There was such a hard pull that it was almost didn't even feel like a decision. For me, it was Instagram Reels and it was YouTube, but everyone has their vice, you know, everyone has their app.
Yeah. I think that is the most common one right now would be the short form content. So whether that's Instagram Reels or it's TikTok or it's YouTube Shorts. This is probably the thing that we have right now as of 2026 that is producing the most dopamine for the least return. And I think the reason this produces so much dopamine, not only is it literally designed to produce as much dopamine as possible, the tastes, what it presents you is very well tailored to what you like. Because of the frequency of content, the algorithm can produce something so close to what you desire. And also there's a randomness of reward. You don't know whether it's going to be a good TikTok. You don't know what's next, right? You never know. So there's always this anticipation, this randomness, which is almost digging into how gamblers feel when they go, well, I don't know if I'm going to get this reward or not. This is exciting. And it's attacking all of these different centers of our brain and feeling amazing. But what are we doing? We're sitting down, where we've pulled a 135 gram brick out of our pocket and we've swiped up every 8 seconds for an hour, right? That's what we've done. That's all we've done. But we've received so much random rewards, so much intense dopamine that feels incredible, and we haven't done anything. And you talked about this feeling of nothingness when you've done it. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that you're not receiving any serotonin. This feeling of achievement and status after completing a difficult task. A lot of the times the things that gave us dopamine, they were driving us towards a task that released this serotonin, this feeling that we've achieved something, that we've increased our status in some way, that we've moved forward in life. When you do something like scrolling, you're receiving a hell of a lot of dopamine, but there ain't no serotonin at the end. There is no leveling up. You've in fact probably leveled down because there's a lot of complications this can have on your focus that we will probably talk about later, but there is no way you're finishing that feeling amazing.
Yeah. And you're also like plugged into the social aspect of, oh, you know, this person sent me this funny reel or TikTok, and like I want to send funny ones to other people, and like I also want to know like what's trending, and like someone tells a joke and it's like, oh, it was just a TikTok and you wouldn't get it. Like, you know, they're pulling on even more levers to dig into, you know, the things that are so innate to who you are to pull you towards it. It's so addictive.
I don't know how you see this, but when someone tells a joke and it's related to TikTok or some sort of short form and I don't get it, I see it as a bit of a flex. Like there was this 6-7 thing and it's been going on for like a year and I just didn't get it. I didn't know what it was. And people would do this and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And they're like, it's a TikTok thing. And you could feel a bit of shame for them being like, yeah, it's a TikTok thing. You wouldn't get it. Like, it's kind of sad. I feel like it's kind of cool. It's like a kind of a flex being like, yeah, I don't get it. I'm not hooked in on that kind of dopamine drip.
Yeah. And I think I definitely feel that way now, but I didn't always feel that way. You know, that's a big identity shift to say, well, I'm not someone who watches short form. I'm not someone who consumes TikTok, to then where you can be proud of being, you know, proud of not keeping up. But I think there's a long period there, so when you're first starting, where you're like, oh, well, everyone knows this thing and I don't know this thing and I want to know this thing. Like, I want to be in on the joke. I think once you've realized how much it's crushing your life and other things that you want, that no longer holds as much weight. Or there's something else just as heavy on the other side that's like, okay, well, I'm willing to sacrifice that for everything else that not having it gives me.
Yeah, I personally think that scrolling is probably the biggest nerf that you can possibly do to yourself. And on the other end of that, I think if you were someone who wasn't scrolling, you are putting yourself at a significant competitive advantage. I see this like a training camp for training a poor attention span. If you think about, okay, what are the goals I want to do? Okay, maybe I want to build a business. Okay, what do you have to do to build a business? Well, I have to sit down and I have to look at a laptop and I have to fixate and concentrate on one task for a long period of time. Oftentimes it's difficult and challenging and it doesn't feel super rewarding. Okay, I have to do this. And then in my free time, I'm doing something that is incredibly rewarding where I focus on, and I've done the maths, 500 different stimuluses and piece of information every hour for doing absolutely zero effort. Like people on average will scroll every 8 seconds. So if you do that for an hour, it's pretty much 1,000 pieces of information every hour. And it feels really good and it's really easy. That is the opposite.
Direct opposite.
The complete opposite,
Yeah.
right? So if you're doing this, you are absolutely nerfing your brain. Good luck trying to build some sort of successful business. Good luck doing anything that requires a strong amount of focus if everything you're doing in your life is training the complete opposite.
Yeah, you really are shooting yourself in the foot. And I felt that and lived that for so long. Like starting my first business, obviously it was tough and it was difficult and there was lots of difficult things to do. But looking back, they were made so much more difficult by the fact that every time I gave myself a spare second or, gave myself time off, I was just consuming cheap dopamine, easy entertainment, which then just makes when you go back to the difficult thing seem way more difficult. Yeah.
It is pretty
fun.
funny, isn't it? But it's something that we all do. I think it's the way our parents probably talk about smoking cigarettes. It's like, well, everyone did it and we were told that it was fine, so we all did it.
Yeah.
Right? I think we're going to look back on this as the exact same thing. It's socially acceptable and everyone does it. Do those two things make anything good or bad? No, they just mean everyone's doing it. That has nothing to do with... In fact, generally, if lots of people are doing something, it's probably not great, right? But these are no indicators that something is safe or not safe, just because it's legal, available, and everyone's doing it.
Yeah, and I think the fact that everyone feels compelled, they feel drawn to do this thing. Like there's so many parallels even just between cigarettes and like social media companies. Like they're huge corporations that, spend a lot of money on advertising and like that essentially, addicting you to a product. And the long-term effects aren't easy to define. Like for cigarettes, you couldn't say what smoking did to you for 20 years. There just wasn't enough data out yet. And now it's like, well, you can't really say what scrolling TikTok for 8 hours every day will do to your brain in 10 years. We just don't know that yet. No. And I think, well, intuitively you can kind of think it's pretty obvious that it's not good for you, I think. Like intuitively, like this, that this cannot be good for you. But in the same way that people probably were like with cigarettes, you're like, oh, but like everyone's doing it. It's like, I'm sheltered by the herd and like, it'll all be okay. It can't be that bad.
I want to touch on a few experiences we've had recently with people who clearly have just destroyed their brain. You went to the Australian Open tennis recently. I want you to tell us about that story.
I know exactly what you're talking about as soon as you brought that up. I had an experience at the Australian Open. I bought a night pass. So got in at 5 p.m. and I wanted to go watch the Kyrgios doubles.
So context, Australian Open tennis tournament. Kyrgios, probably the most entertaining tennis player of all time. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he's the best tennis player. He's incredibly talented, but essentially all this guy does is try and do stuff to make the crowd entertained. And he's just a showman, right? He kind of sacrificed potential of his career just to show off and be showboaty, this showman kind of thing.
100%, yeah. The showman is definitely the way to describe him. And his doubles partner is also a successful Australian tennis player. So as you can imagine, they drew a huge crowd. They were playing on one of the free arenas that anyone can go into. And so I get there at 5 and there's a bit of a line already. It looks like quite long, but I think as the next game finishes, this will be fine. An hour passes, 2 hour passes, 3 hours pass, and we're just standing in the line with the friend I was going with. And I was like, all right, it's been 3 hours. Like, I really want to get into this game, but like 3 hours is ridiculous. I've never lined up for 3 hours for anything like really before. Anyway, we keep going. Eventually we get in there just as the first set is starting. It's almost 5 hours in the line. And luckily we get seats right at the front row. Like, this is great. We got a great view. And so two young guys come and sit next to us right as we sit down. and I start watching the match, and I'm absolutely gobsmacked because as soon as they sit down, AirPods are in at least one ear, music is on, and they're scrolling. And then like switching between apps, doing something else, coming back, scrolling. Literally 10 meters from professional tennis players playing tennis. And like very impressive, the showman in Australia performing like his first doubles game, probably his last. And these guys are both listening to music and scrolling, sitting there. Like I cannot imagine being that person.
It is insane. And it's not like your parents have dragged you along. It's like you've been queuing up for 5 hours.
You've paid to be there. You've queued up to get in there. And you can't pull yourself away from your phone to watch what you were actually there to do.
To watch probably the most stimulating tennis that you can watch.
Yeah.
That one was just mind-blowing to me. It's just crazy. And there's so many more examples. We see it so often now. People going out to dinner and just on their phones. You had recently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so a family go out for dinner and they bring their kid along, and it's obviously parents and an adult friend and the kid. And as soon as they sit down, sitting on an outdoor table, it's like beautiful restaurant, it's a nice day, and they sit down and the PSP with the controller comes out instantaneously and doesn't get put away for the entire thing. Like, to ask him questions for thing, he doesn't even like pause the game. He just like either talks to them or like doesn't look at them. Food is served, still playing, eats while he's playing. I mean, yeah, this is like the kind of thing that it is the worst of the worst. I mean, I hope like it is far down the spectrum, but like you can just see how these things progress and how damaging it can be to your experience of life.
It's just brutal. One of the big things, we'll go more into detail about our experience with dopamine detoxing or dopamine rewiring. One of the big things that I've noticed, having just removed myself from all of this entertainment, is how simple our lives truly are. A lot of us think that, okay, I have a very sophisticated life. I am exposed to a lot of people, a lot of different places. It's like, okay, now don't tell me about what you've been looking at on this brick, on this screen. What does your life actually look like? You talk to 3 or 4 people, you go to the same place every single day, you eat the same things, you do the same few things all the time, you look at pixels. That is your life. You don't have a sophisticated life. You don't have an interesting life at all. You haven't really progressed in any way, but you think you do because I'm watching all of these successful people on the internet and I'm seeing all of these different things and experiencing all these different things, but you're not experiencing anything. You're looking at pixels. These are two very, very different things. And realizing that, we went, oh, okay, yeah, our lives aren't that cool. They're not that interesting. Let's go experience. And the reason you might hear an echo in this video, you know what, I'm going to show you. I want to show you guys.
Flip it, pan it around.
This is our room right now. This is our house. That is a television. So we have a television with a what? A towel, a blanket, so that it's not echoing. We essentially have nothing in this house. The house is completely gone. We're about to go on an adventure. We're about to actually experience the world. So we're going to go to South America. We're leaving in 6 weeks. We're going to live in a different country every 2 months. And the reason for this is that we realized, okay, we need to actually genuinely experience things. Not experience things through our screens, but genuinely experience the world. And this was just a fantastic way for us to do that, to actually genuinely experience the real life rather than experiencing it through the screens. I think that was a big, almost a philosophical discovery from doing this. Hey, real quick, for all of the online entrepreneurs listening to this podcast, if you want help turning distraction into 3 to 4 hours of real revenue generating deep work daily using engineered systems, not motivational willpower, you can join the Modern Monk community for free at school.com/Modern Monk. For everyone else, keep enjoying the podcast.
Yeah, and you say realize, but I also think just like the desire grew. Like as you remove the experience of the world through your phone, yeah, suddenly your baseline is reset. Okay, well, this is my life. This is what is available to me. This is the environments I'm in. And then from there you can go, okay, well, do I want to change anything? What do I want to do? What's within my control? But that only happens once you disconnect from the world that's in your phone.
Yeah, because it is a completely different world to the reality. You're not talking to that many people. You haven't experienced much of the world. You're experiencing all this through your device. And our goal is just to change that and just to really experience it for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you can catch in people so obviously when they tell you about some revelation, some new idea, some fact that they now know, and you ask them, oh, like, where'd you get it from? And like, they just say, oh, I just watched it here, I just thought about it here. It's like, how many times are you just going to go through this cycle of just like consuming something, reverberating it to the people in your inner circle, and then repeat?
That's it. All right, so I mean, that was just kind of one of the benefits we found, but I want to go a bit deeper into what are the big benefits that we've discussed. But I think, first of all, let's just go through our journey. Why did you start dopamine rewiring?
Well, I had a need to. I needed more time back. I had started a business and I was working full time, and I was still wanting to and spending time scrolling and watching movies and TV shows and on Instagram and on YouTube. And there was a lot of pain in not making progress on the business. Like tasks just sitting left undone became an unbearable weight for me, where I was just feeling overwhelmed. Like my to-do list just kept stacking with like, here's more and more things that you need to do. And like the longer you leave them there, the bigger your fear about them gets. And like you start to feel really, really bad. Okay, I need time back. I need to attack these things. I need to stop doing the things that are making me feel bad. And for me, that was Instagram, YouTube, TV shows. And so it started with just screen time limiter. I'm only gonna go on Instagram for 30 minutes and YouTube for 30 minutes and chess for 45 minutes. And of course that doesn't work, because as soon as you start to feel overwhelmed and you don't want to attack those difficult tasks because they are so difficult, you just unlock yourself and you're back in. That was kind of where my journey started, was I needed more time back, and I knew that these were the things that were stealing the most time and giving me the least reward.
Yeah, and then where are you now? How has this changed over time? How do you feel now?
Now I'm in a place where I don't feel the desire anymore for short form content, because it's been long enough now that I've completely removed it from my life. Even where like people can be doing it right beside me and I won't be like, oh, I really want to watch that. Like, oh, I want to get my phone out. Like I no longer ever click where Instagram was on my phone, or, think about, anything in that world. It's been long enough now where I've completely built the fortress that's protected me from, dipping back into those behaviors, that I now have this level of like mental clarity and just like focus that is so rewarding day to day. And it's also just enforced when other people are doing those behaviors that and knew that you hated then.
How funny is it that a behavior that we might have been doing a year ago, 2 years ago, right? But it was certainly a part of our life. You now look at other people doing it in disgust. Like, how could you do this to yourself? But this was us. A few years ago. And now you look at it with a different lens and it's like, what on earth are you doing? You don't know how much this is nerfing you and your potential as a person. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you justify it with every means necessary. Like even when you start to realize that it's bad for you, oh, but I need Instagram for this. Oh, but this one thing. Oh, but it's just for a week. And then like you just justify. And then eventually you get to the point where like, no.
And when you delete it, one of the funny things you're talking about is clicking on that square where it used to be. You'll realize how much of an addiction this really was, because when you delete something like Instagram or like TikTok, you'll notice that when you get this feeling, generally a feeling of being a bit overwhelmed, your automatic reaction, or even boredom, is to reach into your pocket, grab your phone, open it up, and click on where Instagram is. Even if you just change the location on your phone, you'll click where that old location was, because it's so ingrained into your behavioral patterns to just have a trigger of boredom or of uncertainty or fear, and just use this as your coping mechanism. And when you delete it, you go, oh yeah, I definitely was addicted to this. This is pretty wild.
Yeah, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head for my experience. And it's so interesting that, yeah, when you do feel overwhelmed and scared, or bored that that's what you do, and you know that it doesn't solve the problem. It only makes it worse. But I've felt myself do that before, and yeah, it's crazy. But I want to know about your journey. How did it start for you?
Well, I've known about dopamine detoxing for a very long time, like 7 years now. I first learned about this in about 2019. I was super unproductive, super inefficient with my time, just a mega procrastinator. And I was eventually diagnosed with ADD. Like, your attention is so bad, you should literally just take medication to make your brain work normally. So I thought, okay, all right, fantastic. Let me try something else here. And I figured out about dopamine detoxing, which was essentially going to improve my focus and concentration, improve my time efficiency, make me procrastinate less. So I decided to do it. I was like, well, this sounds amazing. So I did it. I used all of my force and all of my willpower, and I made it for 2 months. I did it for 2 months. I made some great progress. It was really surprising. Probably one of the best periods of my life at that time. But then I quit because it was just so hard. I just found it so difficult to rely on willpower and to just fight every day to try and do this, especially when these were habits that were so core to who I was. So I quit. I forgot about it for half a decade. And then mid 2024 to late 2024, when I was at one of my lowest, I was in my job, working a 9-to-5 job that I knew I hated. It wasn't my lowest, but I knew I needed to change something here. I needed something to change, to be more effective with my time, to get myself out of the situation. So I went back to dopamine detoxing. I tried a different approach this time. And this time I basically thought, okay, how about I just try and make it impossible to do? And this was a big deal for me, because I essentially put so much prevention in place to essentially make it impossible to use online entertainment. So it started off with the scrolling, like the TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. I just spent a month and just got rid of that. And then I moved on to, I believe I moved on to video games. I just made it impossible to game. I sold my PlayStation, did all these things. Then I just slowly moved past. I moved to TV shows, I got rid of that. And slowly, month on month, I got rid of everything. And then by the end of 2024, I was just completely living without online entertainment. And this was pretty awesome. I found a insane improvement in my focus, particularly in my time allocation, time management. I spoke about this before, but if you remove the lowest ROI activities in your life, you can only replace it with something more effective. And so you can just keep doing this, keep trading the activities you're doing for higher ROI activities. And I think this is how you can get a lot more out of your time. This has allowed me to pursue multiple goals and do things like that. And it just slowly progressed over time. I slowly started adding in more challenges, adding in more goals to my life, because I realized I just have so much time and focus back. I can just keep adding things in, keep improving. I started running, I started learning languages, started doing all these things. And I just realized I genuinely think this is the real life limitless pill. This is just ridiculous. I'm more focused. I have way more drive and determination towards my goals. And what's it costing me? Well, nothing. In fact, I'm getting a hell of a lot of time back, which I can then allocate my focus and drive into to make more progress. And it's just like this great flywheel that just kind of makes you make quick progress.
Yeah, and I think you just get more out of life. Like you said you're getting, more out of the moment, but you get more out of life. And I think as someone who's known you quite closely for this whole period, it's pretty clear to me that from mid 2024, you were a big dreamer, great at talking the talk, had these awesome ideas, creative, I was thinking outside the box, was, already on kind of a different path to other people. And it's been really clear to see you become a doer, to someone who just takes action and is consistently putting in work for things that seem really difficult. And it makes sense when you explain it at how you've been able to unlock that for yourself. But it's been really evident for someone from the outside who's been close to you to see that change on a larger scale.
I appreciate that. I actually didn't really think about it like that, but I think that's certainly right. And one of the big revelations I think both of us found is that you learn through action. You lead through action. Nothing in your life changes without action. Action is the catalyst for all of this, right? It's why I think, personally, I consider a lot of self-improvement videos that people are watching to be entertainment. Because if you watch a video about improving yourself, right? About getting in shape, and then you change nothing about your behaviors, you will not get in better shape. All of this comes as a consequence of taking action. It's the only thing that can possibly produce change. And that's why I think we emphasize this so much, because it has been a big change in terms of the outcomes and the progress we've been able to make, because it's gone from these dreams and these ideas to actual reality. And the only difference is actually just taking the action.
Yeah, but I mean, taking the action is the scariest bit and the hardest bit, and it's something that you can't really will yourself through. You know, you have to have the drive that you were able to access once you had removed those all that entertainment from your life.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of us are doing right now is we're fighting against our biology. If you have things in your life like the online entertainment, okay, so if you're binge watching TV series, if you're scrolling a lot, if you're gaming a lot, you have a lot of things in your life we talked about before that are really easy and feel really good. Your brain's just going to always want to gravitate towards those behaviors. It's just the natural thing to do, right? Why would I do something harder that feels worse?
Yeah, the path of least resistance is going to take.
Exactly. So I don't think I've necessarily become a less lazy person in any regard. I've just changed what my easiest thing to do is. For example, when I started learning Spanish using the comprehensible input method, which is essentially consuming Spanish input, and I set myself the goal of doing 4 hours a day, I was able to do this for what's been over 150 days. But I was able to do this because it was just the easiest thing I could do that felt really good. I was just working with my biology. It was just the easy thing to do. It's very easy for me to do that because of the way my brain is anchoring certain behaviors. If my brain is constantly anchoring towards scrolling for doing something that feels really good and is super easy, it makes it so much harder to do the work. When the most fun and enjoyable things in your life are learning the Spanish, going for the runs, working on your business, working out, how hard is it to get in great shape? How hard is it to learn a language? How hard is it to scale a business? These are all pretty easy if it's the easiest thing for you to do that feels really good. But if it's not, then you're constantly fighting against this biology, and it becomes really difficult in this uphill battle.
Yeah, no, you've made the point really, really well there, and I resonate completely with it because I've started to feel the same benefits and the same level ups, and you get all this applause from family and friends and people that are close to you that care about you, and they're like, wow, this is so good, I'm so happy for you, you're running more, you're running these marathons, and like, oh, you're starting to learn you're starting to learn a new language, and yeah, there is a part of it that's just like, oh, like I'm not trying, in fact I'm probably trying less hard than the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey when I just started the business, because everything was so difficult then, there was so much willpower being used up.
Yeah.
And now you don't need that anymore.
You're just working with the flow. You're just you spoke about this earlier, that you kind of forgot about the scrolling. You forgot that this was something that you did. This could be the case for all online entertainment. Like for those of you watching, this could be the case for all of the things in your life that feel really easy. Feel really good and are really easy. This could be the case for everything. You could forget about it. And when you forget about it, then all you're thinking about is what's the next easy thing that feels really good. And when the next easy thing that feels really good gets to the point where it's your goals, the inputs, the actions that are required to get you to your goals, of course you become an action taker, because those are the things that are going to give you the most fulfillment and satisfaction in your life.
Yeah, and you get to tap into the loop of getting the serotonin at the end of the dopamine, which is what everyone wants.
Yeah, that's the cool thing, is when you can receive the dopamine for doing the behavior, like going for a run, working on your business, doing these things that are perceived as hard, but when you get the dopamine from doing it, but also the serotonin for achieving and working towards your goals and moving up, then you feel good in the moment and you feel good afterwards. And when that keeps happening, you just start to feel good all the time, which is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, slippery slope in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I mean, can you do it forever?
Yes. I think you can 100% do this forever. And I think if you think you can't do this forever, it means you're not doing it right. Back in 2019, when I quit, when I was doing this and I was relying on willpower and then I quit, it was because the way I was doing it, I just couldn't do it forever. Because I was relying on willpower, which is the worst thing that you can possibly rely on when you start doing this. Now, we've talked a few times about the fortress system, which is essentially removing online entertainment through the points of leverage, starting off with removing your access, okay? If it's impossible for me to access online entertainment, then how can I use it, right? That's a fantastic first place to start, because it can get you to the point where you forget that it's part of your life, which makes it really easy. You can also do things like adding social implications or social repercussions, right? Telling people I'm doing this thing, okay? Not only does that then mean that if you start consuming online entertainment, then you're lying to someone, but at the same time, you're reinforcing your identity and belief as someone who does this. Then that would be the next level, is adding your personal identity and your belief. As you become someone who does this, it builds your identity. At the very start, when I did this and made it impossible, I had a lot of restrictions and blocks in place that made it really hard. But I've slowly started releasing those. I can access anything whenever I want now because I don't need it. I've kind of released myself from the chains because it's not required. I'm the person who doesn't consume online entertainment by themselves. So no matter if you put something right in front of me, I just won't use it because it's just not a part of my identity. And I think if you can do the process this way, without relying on willpower whatsoever, then it's 100% something you can do forever. And I think every single person in life benefits from this. This conversation right now is more enjoyable than it would be if I was someone who consumes online entertainment all the time. Every single part of my life is slightly more enjoyable because of course your dopamine baseline is coming up. Everything is perceived as more enjoyable. It's for, in my opinion, it is for everyone.
Yeah. That's really interesting what you say there about not even requiring access blocking anymore because it's so deeply entrenched in your identity at like the highest level. Because I think if you're watching this and you are someone who consumes online entertainment, not having the access seems like the be all and end all. It's like, oh, if I didn't have that, well then like I wouldn't be able to do it. But you probably haven't even imagined getting to the point where you could give yourself full access and then not even want to do it. But like that is the point you're at, and like it's incredible, and like it's, I think, yeah, just a reminder of like the ultimate goal here is like not just to block yourself from wanting to do it and have to be like live in this realm of, oh well, I want to do it but I can't do it, and then okay, I'll get back to doing what I was doing. Like you do get to this level where you completely forget about and don't even want to do it to the point where it's repulsive.
Yeah, and that's the point we all want to get to, because like anything, for example, if you're a drug addict and you just locked yourself in a room and you couldn't access the drug, that's great, but you've locked yourself in a room. Eventually you want to be the kind of person that could be offered it and say no. I think we all want to get to this point. Now, it takes time. Obviously you don't get there eventually, but there's nothing amazing about this. This is just time in this environment. You talked about forgetting about the scrolling whatsoever. This just happens. It just slowly builds up over time, and I think everyone will eventually get to this point. Because the other thing is, we talked about the disgust when you see other people doing it. It's because you genuinely realize how much better of a person you are without this stuff, how much of an upgrade this is on your productivity, on how you use your time, how you enjoy every little moment, everything. And you go, why would I want to live my life in any other way? This is just infinitely better. So this just builds these beliefs that you have within you that just means that I really don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you've allowed enough time to experience the upside of not having it, because that does take time to set in. Yeah, but once you have it, you have this repulsion to it, and it's amazing. It is amazing.
This repulsion to it, yeah. No, you're right. Why do you think people find this so hard?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that, and it really is the perfect habit. Like if you think about, if anyone's ever read Atomic Habits and like you've thought about trying to build good habits in your life, you know like what makes a good habit stick. You know, you stack it with other things that you do. You know, you make it easy, like the path of least resistance to do the thing. You know, you reward yourself for when you do it. You say that's bad when you don't do it. Think about your short form content or your whatever it is, your online entertainment as a habit, and how you would build that habit to be as the best habit possible, to get spend the most of your time and attention doing it. You probably wouldn't change that much about what you do. Like you already instinctively reach for it based on how you feel. You give yourself constant access to it via like your phone in your pocket.
It's obvious.
You talk to other people and you have social implications for like not keeping up with what's going on. Like you've made this like the perfect habit. And so of course it's really, really difficult to break because it's so deeply entrenched in who you are and what you do day to day.
That's a good point. It really does hit on every single element of what would make your habit stick. Yeah. And we just have it right there. I think a interesting little tactic for people that I know you use as well, and you can tell me how you think this has been going. Just removing all your apps from your home screen, just having absolutely nothing on your home screen so that when you open your phone, nothing is visible. There's no billboards telling you where to go, what to do with your time. You have to be more proactive about it. How has your experience been doing that?
It was initially really good, but then I came to the problem of, I can just swipe down and then search for whatever I want. So like initially it was great to not have things flashing in my face telling me do this, do that. To increase the amount of clicks it took me to get to the bad behaviors. But it wasn't enough. And I think that leans into what we're talking about with the fortress, that like you can't just stop at one of the layers. Like you need multiple layers because otherwise you're going to find ways to get there. And once you've found that way and you've used it once or twice, you won't even notice how difficult it is to do that anymore. Like the amount of time I spent not having Instagram available other than like swiping up, then searching Instagram, then clicking it, then turning off the screen time, then going into it. Like to the point where I didn't even realize that was like 10, 15 seconds I was wasting every time to get into Instagram. Like it would have been more productive to just get straight into Instagram at that point. Like, so I think it's a great start, and I think it really does highlight a lot of the negative things that you don't even know are there, like the impulsiveness of it. So great place to start, but it's not going to solve your problem, that's for sure.
Yeah. Of course, this is only going to be one part of it. I think the whole point is we're trying to add as much friction as possible, make it as hard as possible to access, make it the least convenient possible. And I think depending on how deep this desire is for you to do a certain behavior, depending on how deep rooted this habit is basically how far you'll go. For example, there's an app that I recommend people get called Opal, and this app will basically block you from accessing certain apps. Now you can pause Opal, basically have to go into the app and wait either 15 seconds or 60 seconds looking at a blank screen, and eventually you can turn it off and go into the app. If you're someone who's willing to stare at a blank screen for 60 seconds to go into Instagram, that just shows how deep rooted this is within you. Right? And then you can take it a step further. If you have to re-download Instagram and you have to go into it and go into Opal and wait 60 seconds, and then you have to log into your account again, that just shows how deep rooted the problem is. And that's basically how far you have to take it, is how deep and subconscious of a problem this is. And the more of an issue it is, kind of the more access prevention you need at the start.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that it's the hardest for the people who need it the most. Yeah, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. I want to know, like, what are the 3 things that I can do today to start getting started with dopamine rewiring?
Other than signing up for school.com/modern.
That'd be a good place to start.
I mean, that literally is, like I could spend 5 minutes explaining here's step 1, here's step 2, here's like the best 3 steps that you should do. But like ultimately, like the resources are all there and they're all free. And that's how I took this information on, and how I actually got to the point where I am now was like, even though I know you, I needed to use what was there. because there's details and there's nuances to things that if you miss, you'll find the crack in the ground and you'll dive back in. So I only have one, and it's check out Modern Monk on School.
That I found it pretty cool because I was talking to you a few weeks ago. I was like, how is this going? Like, how is the dopamine detoxing going? Are you finding this hard? And you're like, yeah, I found it hard, but like when I kind of followed some of your advice on school, I was like, this is pretty easy. And that for me, that was like the biggest compliment. I was like, okay, this is good to know that this is making it easier for people to create these transformations.
Dude, I was like kicking myself. Like the amount of time that I've spent, like obviously with you and like talking to you about these things, but then just trying to do it on my own. And then when I was like, okay, I'm actually just I'm gonna watch the fucking videos. I'm gonna do what he says to do. It was all so much easier. And I was like, oh my God, like how, like why have I been like trying to do my own version of it, like half-assed for so long? Like it made that big of a difference.
Okay, I'm glad. Well, we'll keep tweaking and refining and making it better and better over time, but I'm glad that it is working in its current state.
100%, yeah, no, and I'm excited. I think like I'm on the journey path that you were on, and so it's really exciting for me to hear about how you feel about things and how you're able to give yourself full access back. Because I'm not at that point yet, but it's something I'm looking forward to.
No, that's a huge unlock. And for those of you watching right now, Toby and I, we don't live together right now, but we're about to. And I think this year, it's just gonna be the two of us living together. We're gonna be able to create some pretty cool environments and get this done and get to the point where we're just insanely dialed in.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be fun.
And I just don't think many people have that experience of like going through this whole process and then living with someone doing the exact same thing, and like both being able to bounce off each other in that respect and like just cultivate this similar sense of life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a huge one is the environment, because we talk about how everyone's doing this. If you can create an environment where everyone around you is not doing this and they realize how bad it is, gonna make it a lot easier. Because I know a few of our friends have influencers that are, really sucked into this, to whether it's watching just garbage on television. I'm talking, the Love Island level garbage, or whether it's just, brain rot scrolling all the time, playing video games on our phone. Have a friend that literally was playing a video game on his phone with volume on while we're all sitting around a circle talking to each other.
Social event.
Yeah.
Guys hanging out, playing chess, chatting, having some drinks, doing whatever. What was it? Was it Clash?
Geometry Dash.
Geometry Dash, bro.
Yeah.
Geometry Dash with volume on.
Yeah, with volume on. We don't want to get to this level. But the point is, we want to try and create an environment where this is abnormal. This is an unacceptable taboo behavior, because we're all very influenced by our environments and we fall to the level of our environments. We're going to revert to the mean. And if the mean is, this stuff is a massive nerf, this is making every part of my life worse, I don't do this, and you're reverting towards that, it's a lot easier than if you're hanging around a bunch of people playing Geometry Dash on full volume.
Yeah, it makes it sticky, that's for sure. All right, so what are your 3 things? How do you dopamine rewire? If you could do 3 things today.
Well, I think first of all, identify the problem. I think we talk about the bracket of online entertainment. You can try and get rid of everything at once. I think this is when people talk about the dopamine detox. It's like, let me just live without online entertainment and do it for a few weeks and then go back to reality. I think it's just stupid for so many reasons. Firstly, so unsustainable, so difficult, such a change in your environment. Also, what can you possibly accomplish in 2 weeks? And then also, when you now have a fully functioning reward system and then you go back to the brain rot, it's just better. So I think that is stupid. Identifying what your problem is and then breaking it down into, okay, I'm scrolling a lot, I'm playing video games a lot, I'm watching TV shows, and then separate these things, because you don't necessarily have to get rid of them all at once, but identify what that is. And then I would start removing these slowly over time. Now, I recommend following the Fortress system, starting off by removing access, just the easiest place to start, just make it impossible to use. I would use social implications, as in, Toby, I'm not gonna scroll anymore. I've stopped scrolling. This is no longer something I do. Do those 2 things, I think you get rid of most online entertainment just by itself. I think if you just did those few things, have a long-term perspective on this. We did a whole podcast on long-term thinking, but having a long time horizon, and that we talked about this. This is something you can do forever. And if you do this forever, you're going to make progress a lot faster than everyone else, and you're going to enjoy your life a lot more than everyone else. So having a long time horizon on this and saying, okay, I don't need to get rid of everything in 2 weeks. I need to make sure that I'm doing this in 2 years. And that means I might have to be a bit slower. I might need to do this methodically. But I think if you just do those 3 things, identify your problems, get rid of access, and then add some social implications, I think you can get rid of basically everything. And obviously having the long time horizon on your goals is going to make it even easier.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This long time horizons is so important because everyone gets the dump of motivation when they've just had an 8-hour day scrolling and they're like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to delete everything and I'm done with it. And like, that's not sustainable. You're not going to be doing this in 6 months' time. Like, you need to make deeper changes than that. And that takes a longer time. And you got to give yourself the respect. Like, these are big things you're tackling, and tackle them individually with focus and with intent. Fully remove it, be consistent with it, get it to the point where it doesn't need your attention anymore, and then move on to the next. Like, that is realistically how you would do this if you wanted to become the type of person that could have full access to it and not even want to use it.
Yeah, and I think this is why we're so big on not using willpower, is that if you're doing this for a long period of time, you will not have willpower for a long period of time. Now, what's kind of funny about it is that if you do this dopamine rewiring, you're going to have more dopamine. Think about the rat in the cage. The rat in the cage wouldn't cross the other side of the cage to eat the cheese because it had no dopamine. Essentially, you have no motivation. So yes, you will improve your motivation and drive over time, but motivation is still peaks and troughs, and some days you're going to have it, some days you're not, which is why if we have this long time horizon, then do not rely on something that's guaranteed to fail over a long time horizon.
Yeah, you just can't ever bottom out with this stuff, because then you reset your baseline. You're essentially back to square one, like having like 2-3 days where you're back on it. So yeah, you just can't be relying on something that's going to bottom out, which is why this method works so well for you, works so well for me, and I think is the right way to tackle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so keen to see how this develops over time. For me, it's been a year now going all in. I don't know how long has it been for you?
So I've been like 3 months of all in. Like, it's a lot of time before that of half-assing it, dipping in and out, bottoming out.
Yeah, so we've made what we consider for ourselves very good progress in this time. It's not been a long period of time yet. I'm really excited to see what happens over long time horizons, because when you are able to far more efficiently allocate your time, have way better focus and way better drive, and combine that over a long time horizon, I think we're going to see some pretty cool things. So very, very excited to see what happens.
Yeah, things are looking up and they are super exciting. And I think I'm just really grateful that we're both on this journey together, and that dopamine rewiring is a big part of both of our lives, because I only see it having a great impact on who we become.